Bittensor TAO moving to DTAO is similar to YouTube in several different ways. If you think of YouTube, extreme growth and how they've been able to increase demand over time, and let's draw analogies here. So content creators, you can think of as subnet owners on Bittensor. Advertisers are kind of like miners and validators on Bittensor. Alphabet, the token or the share, let's say in equity market, is similar to TAO holders. The last is users. This takes a little bit more explaining. So users on YouTube, what's the benefit there? Well, they get a lot more variety of content. They get higher quality content from two fronts. They get a much broader set of opinions versus, say, propaganda in mainstream media. You can go to YouTube, you can get a much, much, much larger opinion set from different people. You can also get extreme quality, like think Mr. Beast in terms of content creation versus Hollywood, right? So you get a vast, vast number of people creating content. Each new content creator is like a new subnet, right? More advertisers on YouTube, you can think of as more miners and more validators on Bittensor, right? And the accrues to, say, Alphabet equity price, where then they blow, right? And they skim some off the top or a lot off the top, right? However, as Bittensor switches to DTAO, it changes the incentive, so you get a larger number of participants that are able to benefit from this. And we're going to talk about that in this video. We're going to cover some things related to social media, like the number of views that content around Bittensor is getting, the Google trends, like how people are actually searching, how people are actually Googling, because Google is the largest search engine in the world. YouTube is the second largest. So what's happening over the last 30 days? Also, there's 3 specific things that I've pulled out of here in terms of, because I'm tracking a bunch of this kind of stuff. So social media growth on TikTok and YouTube views increase at a very high rate. We're going to get into that. Another very interesting thing from the data we're tracking is the DEX volume versus liquidity. We've had a nearly 100% trading volume in one day, which is insane. I'm going to get into that in just a minute. And then if you look at the last 30 days on Google, remember the largest search engine in the world, you see an uptick in the number of searches. So if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam. And for those of you who are returning, it's good to freaking see you. Yo, what's good, bro? Thanks for stopping by. I'm talking about Bittensor. So let's get into it. So this is what we're tracking here. This is where I found one of the first takeaways. So we're tracking several different things here. We're tracking the wallet growth, because I find this fascinating that you have a top 50 token in terms of market cap. However, there's less than 200,000 wallets. Think about the number of wallets, say, for the top 10 tokens that are created every single week. A lot. Versus think of TAO and the number of tokens that are created, right? In 1 week, 4,000 tokens or 4,000 wallets were created. So you have virtually nobody who knows about Bittensor because there's barely any wallets created. And yet it's still like a top 40 in terms of market cap. So that's fascinating to me, right? And the annualized growth rate is still over like 200% in terms of wallet growth. We still continue to see a decrease in the staked TAO. So this is increasing liquidity. But I think that this could potentially change after DTAO launches. Now, this is what I found super interesting. So we're using the contract address here. This is for wrapped TAO, right? And we're looking on DEX Screener. So if you come over here, this is the contract address, and these are all, for some reason, it showed up a lot, actually, Crypto Sloth, it showed up a lot on Bittensor or Pulse Chain this week. I'm not sure why, even though there's no volume, right? There's zero volume and zero liquidity. It showed up a lot over there. So somebody over in the pulse chain community is paying attention to TAO, which is interesting because when you think about that community, there's a lot of smart people over there. And when I think about like the Bittensor community, it's like chock full of like really smart people. So when you get enough smart people together, it's just a matter of time before they're able to create something freaking awesome. But look at this. So basically I added up all those pools, right? There's 28 pools versus last week there was 12. The total volume in terms of total liquidity, so that's across all those pools, is $8 million. And what's traded in the last 24 hours is $8 million. So that means the entire amount of liquidity has been exchanged hands within a 24-hour period. That's insane. I think we're going to see some price volatility that's going to be really extreme really soon, because to have that much trading volume in a 24-hour period on that much liquidity, that to me is insane. That's a lot. You can see we've been tracking the terms right here, right? So this is basically this as a percentage of this, right? 30%, 38%, 21%, 26%, 45%, 100%. This is going to be pretty crazy. Yes, let's catch up soon. Let's definitely catch up soon. It's been quite a long time. So I found that was very interesting. The other thing that I found very interesting, which we're going to jump into, is the social media. So this is the Instagram stuff. It's not really fucking useful, but on TikTok, the number of people that are posting content on TikTok that use the hashtag Bittensor is growing, right? So from last week to this week, we've had a doubling in terms of the growth rate, more than a doubling, right? It went from week over week growth of 1.28% to 3.37%. So it's more than a doubling, almost a tripling in terms of the growth rate. That's not quite a tripling, but like a 2.25x in terms of the content that's created on Bittensor on TikTok, which is very interesting. Bittensor TAO, nothing really new there. But what is interesting here, we saw a big drop. This is content created. So how do we find this? If you go over to YouTube and you search, say, Bittensor, and then you search over, say, the last 24 hours, which would be today, and then you add up the number of pieces of content. So these are people who are actually taking the time to make videos on the internet around this project, right? What does that do? That increases demand for the project. So let's go back over here. Last week, there was only 4, so we've got a 4x increase. However, when you look at it in terms of a larger time frame, it's kind of in line with previous weeks, where we had 12 pieces of content created at the end of the year, 13, 18, right? It was increasing, then we saw a big drop off. I don't know what was going on around the 19th, but I saw a big drop off. Then we have this uptick here. What was very interesting I saw here is a 7% increase in views. So like, what does this mean? Let's go back over to YouTube for a second so I can show you. So again, we search Bittensor. We click over to 1 month. So over the last month, we want to see the view count. So these are the most popular videos around TAO and Bittensor. And we only count them if they have Bittensor or TAO in the title or in the thumbnail, like they do right here, right? So they have to have those in there in order for us to actually add them to our list. And we're only adding up the top 10 of these videos, right? So we're going to come back over here. We're only going to take the top 10 of these videos and add up their view count right here on our list. And when we take those top 10 and we add them up, we have a 7% increase in 1 week. We've only been tracking this one for 2 weeks, but this one I'm super curious to see. Like a 7% week over week growth rate is a lot. Like that's pretty substantial. Now, is this a fluke? Like, did somebody just do a video and they don't continue doing videos? Is this going to drop off? I don't know, but this is going to be very interesting to see how this continues to change over time. There was also about a 1% increase in the Discord members, right? So these are the number of people that were online, and these are the total number of members. So there's about a 1% increase in total members in a week. Like, That's a lot, because the Bittensor community is fucking nerds, like a lot of freaking nerds. But I want to tie it back into switching over to DTAO. So, which according to Const is supposed to be launching in February, right? And hopefully by the end of February, it actually should be launching, which is going to be very interesting. And when we have this switch, there's no other cryptos that I'm aware of where you have so many parties or participants that are able to win. So let's go back into the YouTube thing. I think YouTube was able to have a network effect to achieve exponential growth by aligning incentives where more participants can win. As we talked about, advertisers, and the more content creators or subnets, then the more advertisers or validators and miners on Bittensor can participate in the network. So if you can create an incentive system where the more, every time somebody adds to the network, more people can make money, as in the YouTube case, like how do users make money? Well, they make money by having higher quality content, right? Or they make money by like the lower cost. Say if you think, like, let's just draw the example of like cable, right? Somebody pays for cable, right? But you can go to YouTube, you can get higher quality content than cable, cheaper cost, much vaster array of opinions of topics that you can view, and higher quality content than you can get on cable, right? So Bittensor is effectively doing this. I wrote down 5 different parties where, the subnet owners are going to make money from emissions. The miners are going to make money from emissions. The validators are going to make money through emissions. Holders are also going to benefit by they're basically contributing their USD dollars. I'm talking about new holders who don't get it through emissions, right? So new, like me, I'm not getting it through, I'm not getting TAO through emissions. I'm getting it through going to buy it in the market. So I'm exchanging USD or some other crypto for TAO, which is then contributing to the network. And then users are, say, like the subnet 27, there's other subnets, but that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head, where they get a lower cost and potentially higher quality. So I don't remember what subnet is, but they have a faster inference speed than what's out there in centralized land. So with the switch from TAO to DTAO, you actually are strengthening all of these incentives. So you have more players who are going to get more money as time goes on. When you put something in place like this, it's almost like if you could take, I couldn't think of another example besides YouTube. YouTube is like a good example related to this. Let's think about what happens on YouTube. You have another content creator, so that's a subnet owner on the Bittensor side, right? So you get another creator that creates content on YouTube. Okay, how does that benefit players, right? Well, the content creator gets attention, right? They might sell more of their shit, right? You can check out sponsor if you like. They're getting attention. They are getting money from monetization, whether it is a sponsorship or they're like selling their own thing, or they're getting ads on their videos, right? But then what does the advertiser get? Well, they get another person out there that is getting more attention, and they can put an ad in front of that, so the advertiser can get more sales as well, right? So the advertiser is benefiting as well. And in this case, the advertiser is similar to, say, a miner or a validator on the Bittensor network. How do the holders benefit? Well, the holders are similar to equity, right? So if you think of Alphabet, that owns a bunch of different companies, they have a lot of bloat. They also take a lot of money off the top. And when you think about creating the best outcome, if I were to try to create something versus teaming with other really awesome people, that I'm going to have certain biases that I bring to the table and things that I'm unable to see just because I don't have that experience to see those things. So by having other people be able to contribute to that, I'll be able to create something that's much better. However, if I put an incentive in place like on Alphabet controls that incentive mechanism for YouTube, right? So they take 55% of all ad revenue, where in the Bittensor network, it doesn't work like that, right? Each subnet can create their own incentives, but they also can have incentives for outside capital coming in. So say like you have a subnet, they could earn in multiple different ways, right? They could earn by emissions of TAO, but then they can also earn in terms of USD value. If I am a subnet owner and I am creating a product or service that is going to the market and somebody's paying, they don't have to know this even on Bittensor. Somebody's paying to use my product or service, that's US dollars that are coming in that then I could take to convert to DTAO, which would increase the demand of my token if I believe in myself and my project and the team, and the validators and the miners working on it. So by switching to DTAO, this is going to drastically increase the incentive strength within this. And when you have those things happen, similar to say with YouTube, to get to the size of where it is right now, where YouTube gets more like views and watch time than like anything else out there. What YouTube came out in 2004, maybe, so it's taken 20 years, 25, 21 years, maybe 2005 or 2006, I don't remember, to get to the size of where YouTube is today. And YouTube is still growing. Think of how much faster Bittensor is going to do this, because they are not taking things off the top. There's far less bloat, and not one centralized entity controls the incentives all the way through, right? There's an incentive as in inflation going into the system from TAO, which is going to be the demand, the supply side of the equation, right? Because you got supply and demand. So we're talking primarily about demand. And if the supply is going to shrink for the supply of the emissions is going to more than likely shrink when you switch to DTAO, because the emissions are going to switch from TAO to DTAO, and DTAO is going to inflate at a crazy rate where TAO will more than likely decrease their or eliminate emissions, right? But as these incentives are strengthened from the switch to DTAO, the rate of growth in the network is going to accelerate, because all the incentives around the holders, the miners, the validators, the subnet owners, the users are going to drastically change. Think of like a subnet owner. They right now don't have as much of an incentive to get outside capital in. Now, once they are responsible for the, like, when you switch to DTAO, the subnet owners are going to earn DTAO of their specific token. And if they don't want to lose value, or like if you're going to earn, say if there's 4 subnets and each one was getting 25% of the TAO that's emitted in a single day. Now I'm not going to get that 25%. I'm going to get DTAO, right? And if I want to get TAO, I have to sell DTAO to get TAO, right? Through the DTAO, like constant product formula, right? So now when I do that, that actually hurts the price of the DTAO token, which means that if the price of the DTAO token is going to go down, then that means you're going to get less people who want to stake. So if less people want to stake in my specific subnet, then what happens? Then I get less than 25% of the emissions if there was 4 subnets, right? Because if there's less stakers, when we go to a market-based system, if you haven't fully like kind of dove into DTAO, what it's going to entail, you should check out one of the other videos on it if you're curious on it. But if I don't incentivize stakers to come stake with me at my subnet, then I'm going to lose more money, because I won't be able to get as much emissions from it. So now I'm going to have an incentive to also get more outside capital through making a product or service, because now I can take that USD value that I'm accruing that way so that I can sell less of my own token, which is going to drive down the price, which is going to mean that I get less stakers, which means that I'm going to get less emissions through this process. So, and then as a byproduct, I'm referencing subnets, but in reality, it's also going to affect the validators and the miners, right? Because if miners and validators earn more money by going somewhere else, then they're going to leave that subnet and not work on that subnet. They're going to go to a different subnet. So, long story short is that when we switch over to DTAO, this is going to create a much stronger incentive system. Now, it's going to take 3.5 months, potentially more, for it to switch from a validator-based system for emissions to a completely market-based system for emissions. And I still don't believe there's going to be very many players that actually participate in it, because there's more risk. Although there is a lot of degens in crypto that will participate, so we'll have to see how this plays out. But I'm excited about this. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this, and how do you think we move forward in a decentralized system like Bittensor versus something like centralized YouTube? Do you think we're going to see a much faster realization of like a gigantic behemoth, or do you think it's going to take longer than it took, say, YouTube, right? YouTube to, let's say, took 20 years. Do you think Bittensor will do something so extravagant in less time than it took YouTube? I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. And to make it super interesting here at the end, I'm just going to stare at the camera while I wait for the stream to end.